Hello and welcome back to my first time homebuyer video series. This is video number 2 in the 3-part series, and in this video I'm going to talk to you guys about the timeline of purchasing your first home. So I get a lot of people that contact me who are currently renting and who are looking to purchase a home, and they say, well, my lease isn't up until August, so that gives us, until later this summer to start looking. It takes a little bit longer than that to finish the whole process. So what I'm going to do is walk you through start to finish so that you know how much time this whole process might take, so that you can plan for that if you are ending a lease or if you're planning for that in your savings amount or however you need to plan for it. So first of all, I just want to say congratulations, because at this point, hopefully you have the money in your account and you have your pre-approval and we're ready to get started soon. So congratulations on that. First of all, you're about to step into a really awesome wealth building tool, which is going to be owning your own home. So that's point number 1, is congrats, awesome work. Point number 2 is that you might need to take some time off of work during this process. You're about to begin your largest investment probably that you've made to date in your life. And so this is something that is going to take a lot of your time and attention. And especially with how the market is right now, it is something that you're going to have to be flexible and be able to take a little bit of time off work. So if you have PTO or anything like that, or if you have specific days that you can schedule on or off, I would recommend talking to your boss sooner than later about, hey, we're in this home buying process. Our realtor said we're probably going to have to take some days off. So I just want to know how flexible I can be with that. So that's a little piece of advice before you begin. So let's start with the looking at homes. If you're looking at homes, that means you've got a pre-approval and we've already signed a buyer agency agreement. That's what hires me as your realtor. And the pre-approval is what says that you can afford the houses that we're looking at. So as long as we have those 2 documents ahead of time, we can start looking for homes. Some people want to buy the very first house they walk into and it works out. And some people, it takes a little bit longer to narrow down what they're looking for, especially if you're not sure of what location or what style home. Sometimes it takes trial and error of seeing those things, driving some neighborhoods, testing the commute to work to know where you want to be and what style home you want to be in. I would recommend starting that process now. If you're thinking about moving to a different part of the city, then start driving that part of the city to see if you're going to be okay with that commute, to see if you like the amenities around there, if you like the stores they have, if there's parks, if whatever you're looking for you and your family. Make sure that the place you want to move to has that. Because you don't want to fall in love with the home and then start driving the neighborhood and realize, oh, this actually isn't where we want to be. I wish this house was somewhere else, because you can't move the house. So the looking for homes part might take a day. I would say on average it takes 2 to 3 weeks. It might take 2 to 3 months. It really depends on what you're looking for, how often those types of properties come on the market, and how selective you are able to be in finding the perfect home for you. So if it takes anywhere from 2 weeks to 3 months to find a home, then that tells you that you need to start looking far sooner than you think you might. The next step is once you find a home, you will write an offer on the home. Now I'm going to do a whole nother video on what it takes to write an offer and what the terms are that go in that offer, so don't worry about that. But the whole process from seeing the home, writing the offer, getting it submitted, and then hearing back from the sellers and coming to a full agreement, a signed actual contract with them, usually takes about a couple of days, because it takes time to submit the offer and then we usually have to wait back from them. So that's about a 2 to 3 day period of writing and waiting. Now, once you're under contract, that means that everybody has signed on the dotted line and that you are legally bound to the contract that you offered that you would purchase their house for. The first step of the process are your inspections. The inspection period is usually 10 days long, and that means that you have 10 days to get all your inspections done. Once you get your inspections done, you negotiate repairs. That period is another 5 days. So the first 2 weeks of the contract are all about inspections. During that 2 weeks is when you want to look for your homeowner's insurance and when you're going to be getting all your documentation to your lender for the loan. Now, after you negotiate your inspections is when we're going to move on to the appraisal. Now, the appraisal takes time to order, it takes time to conduct, and it takes time to review. So once it's been ordered. It's probably going to be like a 2-week time frame before it actually gets completed, and then we get the results of it. So during that 2 weeks is when you want to be scheduling your moving. That's when you want to be scheduling all your utilities to shift over. That's when you want to start thinking about forwarding your mail and get all that in place before you move. Any other thing that you need to do to line up for moving, you kind of want to wait till those 2 weeks when the appraisal is getting done. Now we get the appraisal back. Sometimes it needs to be negotiated. If so, that's another 5-day window. But during all of this, what's kind of going on behind the scenes is that I'm going to be working on all the contract documentation that needs to be done. The title company is going to be working on your title commitment, which, if you remember from video 1, that is what ensures free and clear title from the sellers to you to make sure that there's no liens or holds on the property or anything like that. And your lender is going to be working on your loan approval. So around the time that the appraisal comes back, all 3 of those things are going to merge together, and we're going to have final clear to close from your realtor's broker, which is my job, to make sure that all that documentation is what it's supposed to be. You're going to get the title commitment from the title company, and you're going to get the loan approval from your lender all around the time that the appraisal is coming back. So once we have all of that stuff done, then it's time to do our final walkthrough, it's time to do the closing, and it's time to take possession of the property. Now, a lot of times all 3 of those things happen on the same day. Sometimes they happen staggered, spaced out throughout a whole week. Those are timelines that we decide kind of at the beginning of the process, so that you have time to ask off work for it. You have time to ask for help moving, find movers if you're going to do that. But generally, we will do the walkthrough as soon before, as close to the closing time as we can, because the whole point of a walkthrough is to make sure that the house is in the same condition as it was when you first wrote your offer on it. So if for some reason the day of closing the basement floods and you don't know that and you buy it anyway, then that turns into your problem. So that's why a lot of times I try to schedule the walkthrough right before closing so that we have the most up-to-date info about the house. It is nice to have a little bit of lead time on the walkthrough though. So if they haven't patched all the nail holes, or if they still have a bunch of trash at the house, if there's a day or 2 between the walkthrough and closing, then the other agent can make sure that the sellers take care of what they need to take care of. We're also making sure that all the fixtures that are supposed to stay are still with the house, and we're making sure that whatever repairs we negotiated to be done were actually done to the standard they were supposed to be. Closing is not at the house. Closing is at the title company. Because of COVID, a lot of title companies do a curbside closing. But I think once people are allowed back in offices, then they're going to be doing, that's where you actually go to the closing table, and the table is at the title company. And they're going to lay all the documents out for you, and you have to sign a million things. And that is what the closing is. Now, usually I'm going to give you the keys at the closing. Whether or not you take possession at that time or not. So possession, just because you close, doesn't mean you're taking possession at that time. Sometimes we've agreed with the seller for you to take possession at a later date. Sometimes that means right then at closing. Sometimes that means at 5 p.m. that day. It really just depends on what we write in the contract. So from start to finish, let's say we take a couple of weeks to find you a house, and then the transaction itself usually takes about 30 to 45 days. The entire process on the fast end is 2 months, and on the long end could be, 6 months if it takes you a long time to find something. Or something to consider is that about 1 in 4 transactions do fall through for one reason or another. All of those steps I just listed are ways that the transaction could fall through. So it's really not over till the fat lady sings. I've had, unfortunately, closings fall apart the day of closing, and you just never know what's going to happen. And so, you need to leave yourself enough time that you're not going to be homeless, especially if you're renting currently. It's really nice to have time to move. And if a transaction happens to fall through, then that gives you time to find something else before your lease is up. So I don't recommend pushing the envelope on that time frame. I think that 6 months before your lease is over is a really, really great time to start looking for something and to get that process rolling.